So there's some folks have had questions about assignments, and of course that's part of this class as well. We are averaging one assignment a week, and we have 2 exercises a week. So each week there's in the coursework you have a list of what the expected assignment is, along with percentages of how you're going to be graded. The exercises are inside discussion forum. So about two exercises a week are in the discussion forum for you to complete as a way to really participate in the course, okay? They will not be graded individually, like up to 100%. They will be more not extra credit, because that's not a great term either. They're a part of the course, but not as essential as coursework, okay? So let me actually share my screen and go through my RCC, because I've also uploaded a couple of articles that I would like you to read, and I want you to have access and be able to find them, okay? And welcome those of you, Ayala and Alberto. I'm glad you guys are here. Both of you, for Ayala and Alberto, are you okay? Is everything going okay?
Yes, so far so good.
Good morning, guys.
Good morning, good morning. All right, so here we go, sharing the screen. So I am right now in resources, okay? And that's a good link as well. It's right here on the left-hand side. It has the overview of the units and the articles that I'm expecting that you are reading as we go through the course, okay? So the course is in multiple places. So you find some time to really go through my RCC so that you can see everything that kind of joins the course together, okay? So this week we are focused on nature and the environment. It's a 4-page article. Actually, there's 2 pages on per, so it's going to be like 7 pages. But it's a very interesting article in conversation with what we were talking about last week. There was a discussion between Krishnamurti, who wrote this article on nature and the environment. It's actually part of a larger book. And I'm going to share one of these pages with you. So I'm going to, hold on one second. I'm just going to open up these guys and let them come in. Good morning, Stella. Good morning, Carol. So this is the article that we're focusing on this week, and we're going to have a discussion towards the end of the week, either on Wednesday or Friday, on this article. The text is called On Nature and the Environment. This is the cover. And it was written by Krishnamurti, who was sought to be the next world leader in the 1900s. And they were grooming him, the Theological Society was grooming him in India when they discovered him as a young boy. And he denounced that title. He did not want to participate in projecting one ideology. And he decided to just be a speaker and a writer. And he also denounced his Indian heritage and said, I'm a human being of the world, not of one nation. So he denounced his citizenship, and he became, and I'm not sure how he traveled, because he must have not had a passport, but it's very interesting that we, like we were talking with some of you during the presentations, which we can continue tonight. I'll talk a little bit about that a little bit later. How we group ourselves into these pods that are called nations, right? It's sort of an arbitrary line on the planet and the land. And one line, well, it could be 1 foot in the United States and 1 foot in Canada. And it's an arbitrary kind of border that we set up, and then we call the interior the nation, and anyone who's outside is part of another nation. It's very interesting when we create these borders and not realize that we're sort of one species traveling on the spaceship Earth planet. So with this article, I want you to think about 2 things. There are these labels, that cultural constructs that we grow up with, that label who we are, right? Culturally. And, but there's an underlying something else. There's the natural who we are, right? And there's a question, when does the culture come in that describes you or prescribes you? And what's that natural stuff that is simultaneously happening that is not necessarily within our control? This is just, we are temporarily in this part of this body. So I want to read the part of this article to start off our class this morning. Just move that. So it says, be aware of the beauty of every day, every fresh morning, the wonder of the world. It's a marvelous world, and we are destroying it in our relationship with each other and in our relationship to nature, to all the living things of this earth. Can we inquire into a brain that is silent? It's only through great silence that you learn, you observe, not when you're making a lot of noise. To observe those hills and these beautiful trees, to observe your family and friends, you must have space and there must be silence. How many of you have had this experience where your brain, is there anything in your brain when there is no thought? Or do you remember a time when you actually didn't have a thought in your head? And what does that look like? Can you describe that to me? Natalie, describe this to me, or Carol, or anyone.
For me, I mean, I would just say, it's just like if it is you just in there's a sense of not being grounded, and you're just in a space where it is, as I said, there's no sense of direction as to where you're going or not. So you've just completely lost your train of thought. You're just not thinking.
Right.
Just existing.
Right. Okay. So that idea of just existing, it's really powerful. These thoughts put us in a direction, right? These thoughts drive us because we're meant to be doing something. And so they're like the driver in the seat. And then when you stop, when there's a break, and it's even between maybe thoughts, like there's maybe a momentary pause, right? And when there's nothing, then this idea of existing and being present with whatever is around you, wherever you are. That's very interesting. So see if there could be a moment in your day where you can, where that breaks happen. If you can notice those breaks and what happens during those breaks, that's very interesting in relation to art. Okay, Carol, have you ever had that experience where you're suspended from thought, like there is no thought? Because some people haven't had that experience.
I can think.
I can't think of a thought.
I don't have word. I can't think at all.
Yeah, I think during that pause, there are no words. There are no concepts. There are no, you're just, and in fact, there's not
no word to join to another word.
Right. It's like a portal to another word. It's very interesting. So when you read this article, think about that. Okay. When is it that there's a moment of pause and silence and stopping? Because it's through this pause that possibly something else can exist. And until we recognize the pause and grow that pause, we're going to perpetuate the same thing, because our thoughts are going to be the drivers, and they're going to drive us in the same direction that we've always known, because it has sustained us, because we have survived that. So it'll keep going, right? And if we don't want that to keep going, then we need to change and alter. Alberto, any experience of pausing thoughts? And we'll keep going, that's okay. All right, so to observe those hills and these beautiful trees, to observe your family and friends, you must have space and there must be silence. But if you are chattering, gossiping, you have no space or silence. And we need space, not only psychologically, but much more, not only physically, but much more psychologically. And that space is denied when we are thinking about ourselves. It's so simple. Because when there is space, vast space psychologically, there's great vitality. But when that space is limited to one's own little self, the vast energy is totally contained with its limitations. So that's why meditation is an ending to self. I'm going to post a 10-minute meditation for you all in the resources. You can do any meditation you want, but I think if you can experiment with meditation for about a week, take 5 days, 10 minutes a day, and see how it will, see what will happen with your day. There are scientific studies behind taking 10 minutes to meditate and having beneficial physical effects to your well-being. So I'm going to post that to make sure that you get that resource, because it's important right now. When the space is limited to oneself, right, ending of self. One can listen to all this endlessly, but if you don't do this, what's the point of listening? If you actually are not aware of yourself, of your words, of your gestures, your walk, the everyday, every gestures, your walk, the way you eat, the way you drink and smoke, and all the rest of the things human beings are doing. If you are not aware of all the psychological, the physical things, how can you be aware of what's going on profoundly? So this is the intro to Krishnamurti. Go ahead and read the sources, read the article, and then see what comes, see if you agree with him. You don't have to, you can have differences of opinion, obviously, but he is somebody that, especially at the beginning, said, he was talking to a scientist, David Bohm, who's a quantum physicist, and said they came up with a theory that human beings took a wrong turn about 6,000 years ago or more, when we decided that the planet and each other, the person next to us, was here for our use, right? It's very interesting in the US right now, thinking about how individual liberties and individual freedom went hand in hand. The underbelly of that, right, of liberty and freedom, the underbelly of that was that there was still slavery at that time, right? So this contrast between going forward and thinking about individual freedom and having individual freedom, and at the same time practicing this incredibly different and contrast philosophy of slavery at that time, right? So there's a complete contradiction between the philosophy of freedom for everyone and then the reality that at the same time, while during the Enlightenment, while people were sort of preaching the liberties and the freedom, at the same time they were holding slaves. So that philosophy has to that's a collapse. It doesn't make sense. All right, folks. Now we're going to turn to our exercise for today. Today we're going to use your number one tool in art making, which is, anyone want to take a guess? It's your hand. And with our hands, we do a great many things. We communicate with them. We certainly do all our activities with them. And so it's a time to pay attention to how this moves and manipulates. We are going to be drawing. So if you have a pencil or a pen ready, that would be great, and a piece of paper. And I'm going to break it down so that whenever you look at a three-dimensional form, you can start seeing the potential of how to draw something three-dimensionally, okay? You don't have to stress. It's I always tackle the hardest thing in art making to draw. And then from there, you can discover, you can draw trees, plants, people in the same way that you do this exercise, all right? If you happen to have a piece of charcoal, I will do this just as an example, but it could also help if you have something that will actually get you dirty. So set up a little space for yourself on your desk, okay? And we're going to move into drawing. If you have questions, please stop me or pause, or if you have any comments, feel free to stop me as well, okay? So to draw a three-dimensional form is a bit tricky, right? This is a flat piece of paper. This is three-dimensional form. How do I get this onto here? And we're going to break it down. We're going to go from the center out, from the core out, okay? So at first, I'm going to think about my bone structure and my bones, okay? The center of those, and I'm going to break those down into simple sticks, okay? I'm drawing right on myself with a piece of charcoal, but you certainly don't have to draw on yourself. If you want to, if you can, that would be great, because this is going to be easier to draw once you have those lines over here, okay? So I'm drawing my center bone right here, and that gives me the size of my bone that I'm going to be drawing and the direction that the bone is going, okay? So I have this, and then because there's a million bones in my palm, I'm going to simplify. I'm going to go from that center bone to each of my fingers. So I have this bone that goes in this direction over here to my thumb. I have this one from the center bone going to my second finger, right? My index finger. Then my middle finger over here, my ring finger over here, and my pinky. And this simplifies. I find that when we are drawing, that the sense of touch is really important, okay? So if you can touch whatever it is that you're drawing, it's going to be easier to translate that form onto the page. You're going to have, now I have these 5 sticks that connect to my center bone. So I take these sticks, trace them over with your opposite hand, and this gives you the direction and really the feel for that bone structure. And I want to make sure that this whole thing can fit on my page, so I'm going to start right here, okay? And I'm not going to draw my whole form. I'm just going to go to right here. I'm going to take that, I'm going to measure accurately, and then simply put down the stick, okay? The stick is going in this direction, so I can trace that. Then I have this one. Again, it's going in that direction and that diagonal. Sorry, I just needed to admit someone into the classroom. So here we go. This goes to the second finger, the index finger, and that's just my palm, right? Oftentimes we know how to draw the fingers because they're sticking out, but the palm and the size of the palm are so large and we often forget it, right? We often forget that space. So it's important to account for that space. So this right here on the page, right, is just my palm before I even get to the fingers, okay? So we're working from the inside out, the core of whatever it is that you're drawing out. Then you want to do something your hand communicates. So you can do all kinds of gestures, right? This drawing possibly can outlive you, okay? So does art, okay? So you can think about what kind of message do you want to send that hand? And obviously, when I'm teaching teenagers, they all want to put up the middle finger as a communication device, but you can certainly figure out a gesture that maybe speaks to you. You can bend the fingers, you can point the fingers, do something interesting that will communicate, and I want to teach you how to draw that, okay? So I'm going to have a simple gesture. It's going to have to be held in place for the next hour, so make sure it's in comfortable position, all right? And then we're going to go back to the bones. So we have our palm. Now we think about there's 2 bones in the thumb and 3 bones that can go in various directions with your other fingers. So with my thumb, I have it going straight and then at a straight and then at a diagonal over here. Okay, so I have now the size of that stick again and what direction that stick is going. Okay, so I have my thumb added to my bone, okay? Right where that palm connected, I stuck that second part of the bone right on top. All right. So now with the fingers, the tricky part is what happens to the fingers that are pointing and coming back at me, right? In drawing, you draw what you see, not what you intellectually know. So I know that there are bones that are back here and over here, but because I don't see them, I'm not going to draw them. So I see with my second finger, I see a little bit of a bone in the center over here. And then when my finger is bent, this middle bone, because it's facing me, I don't see right here. All right, so I'm not going to draw it. The only bone that I'm going to draw is this one. That means, go ahead. Sorry, ask me questions. And maybe that was just a glitch in the sound system, so that's fine too. All right, so what it ends up happening, or what it ends up looking like, is that I'm only drawing the fingers that are coming back at me. I'm not drawing the backbone. What this looks like on the page is that you have the second finger, my index finger and my second finger over here, a little bit over here, and then I have a bone sitting on top, like that. For my middle finger, there is a bone back there, but I don't see it. So the only digit that I draw is the one that's bent back at me, the size of this, and the stick is coming back down like that. For my ring finger, I have two bones. I have bone going this way and bone going this way, okay? So I draw, you can, if you trace it with your opposite hand, it's going to tell you how long it is, and you can measure, and what direction that bone is going. So I have one here, and it's going right back. And then for my pinky, it's coming back into the palm. So it's gonna go here and come out this way. So initially, your drawing might look a little bit like sort of chicken fingers, all right? Or chicken bones, where you have just these lines that are coming out from something that looks like a palm, all right? The direction of these is really important. The center, we're looking at the center of it, which is going to give you a roadmap for where to go. So just make sure that when you're drawing, that you measure those bones, especially for the palm, which we often neglect. Measure them.
Excuse me, Professor.
Sure. What is it?
Still, you are sharing your window, so we can't see us bigger.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm going to stop sharing.
Yeah, thank you.
That's better. All right. So you have your hand in whatever position you want, right? Then you have that bone structure. Feel that bone structure with your opposite hand, the drawing hand that you're drawing with, and it will tell you what direction that bone is going and how long it is. You can measure the bone, and you can put that measurement directly on the page so that it's 1-to-1 ratio. You don't have to shrink it. The one trick that people, the one thing that people often do when they start drawing is that by the time the measurement comes here, they shrink the measurement, and so it looks like a child's hand instead of a grown-up hand. So just be mindful of that, not to shrink your bones as you are drawing here. And you can come back and you can measure and remeasure accurately to make sure that those bones are the right size. Okay, so find the bones. I'm just going to wash my hands for the next step. All right, so once you have your bones and you have the core of whatever it is you're drawing, by the way, it can be a tree, it can be your pet. When you look at the center of that thing, it will tell you exactly what direction it's going. It's simplified. It's going. It tells you the roadmap for your drawing. The next step is for a body. When you have your hand, and there's two things in the drawing. You can't move your hand and you can't move your eye, all right? As soon as you move your eye in a different direction, or if the hand moves on you, it becomes a whole other drawing, okay? So try to keep it as still as possible. The next step is to think about the outside layer of your hand, the contour, the edge line. Our body curves in and out, okay? So I want you to go as slowly as humanly possible. Okay, you can feel out the size of your wrist. You can measure that on your page. Give yourself a measuring tool. And then there's curves that curve in and out. Feel them out or trace them with your pencil, and that will tell you how long that curve is, right? And if it curves in or out, and how long it is, okay? So now that you have your roadmap, your muscles go around. Your muscles are going around those bones, right? So I took the size of my wrist, and now I'm going to slowly make my way around the whole form, drawing the bones that I feel around the curves that I feel. I'm sorry, not the bones, the curves that I feel around my fingers. And each bump is particular to you, okay? So go as slow as you can, tracing your actual fingers to get the curves around those bones. How many of you, has anyone drawn their hand before?
No.
Okay, right. Which was one of the, again, one of the hardest things to be drawing. So just give yourself, if it's we're at the beginning of the process, just feel out the curves, just stick to the curves. Don't worry about the fact if it's not looking like a hand, none of that. Just go slow. Give yourself some time to actually look, to actually see. All right, where the curves are, where the bumps are, how long the curves are. So now, on the edge line, you're looking for, does the curve go in or does the curve go out? Whenever there's muscle, you're going to, there's a bit of a bump, right? So if there's, especially around the knuckles, there's going to be a bit of a mass because the knuckles are.
So you got to measure the curves then.
You, as I'm tracing around my hand, I'm feeling out how long that curve is. Right? How long is that curve? So when I have my thumb, for example, I was feeling out the curve of one muscle, the curve of how it goes around my knuckle, how straight it is here. There's my fingernail before it curves back around, okay? So as slowly as you can, all your answers of how the curves are going around are on your hand, right? So if you don't know if it curves in and out, just trace it on your actual hand with the opposite. And this develops muscle memory with your opposite hand so that when I come over here, I know that that bump is going to be right here. Okay. And if it's going, you know, it's so interesting. These are just particles on paper. So if it doesn't, we can always move them. They can always shift, right? We have an eraser. It's all good. And if it doesn't, you know, if it comes out for your first hand, if it comes out like chicken fingers, that's fine. Again, this is one of the hardest things to draw. And we're going to start out with the hardest thing so that when you get back to drawing what you like, you know how to do it. And it's going to be a lot easier. Notice in drawings and paintings, a lot of the artists themselves don't draw hands because they're complicated. It's like this beast or this yeah, it's like this alien that we don't know. So go around. And then this curve, right? This curve when it comes back in on itself. It would also help, those of you who are having a hard time seeing those lines or those curves, it can help with if you photograph your hand in that position, because what we're doing when we're looking at this hand as we're drawing is like that if we are taking a photo and imagining it flat, right? So you have to pick up when this finger comes around, because it's, sorry, let me see if I can, because my finger is round and I have to draw it from the top. This curve has to could go back in here, and then I can pick up the line. So this line comes here, and then I have to pick up the line back here for that curve and that curve over here. So my second finger, when I'm drawing it, when it's pointing forward, I have it curving back here, and then it comes forward where my nail is going to be somewhere over here. Right, because it's bending forward towards me. So I have this curve that's coming back in, and then I have those creases back there. Okay, so that's the tricky. I think if you have your hand, and if it's all straight out like this, then it becomes a little bit easier to work with. But if you have some of these bones that are going in different directions, you have to account for those directions. That's why those bones and those finger lines are good to draw first, so that you know what direction they're going. All right. Here we go with our next. So go slow, feel curve, take a little bit of time this morning to see accurately, right?
Yes, sir.
And again, frustration with drawing the hand, there's a lot of frustration. This is not something that we are used to doing, and our brain wants to take over, take charge. Tell that brain to quiet down for a little bit. You'll pick that brain up a little later. we are just going to focus on what we see and what we feel. So make your way around the entire hand. Your bones are like a roadmap to tell you where the lines should be. But you can also, if they're not sitting exactly in the middle of those fingers, that's okay too. So the steps are to look at the center of whatever it is you're drawing and draw the core of that, draw the bone structure, draw the inside, and then look to the outside edge and see if you can draw the curves. Make your way around the entire hand. We're also not used to going this slow. Our brain wants to, go do 10 other tasks instead of drawing and taking time with his hand. So be aware of what your brain is doing. So here we go. All right, your hand and the outside curves. Does anyone want to be brave and just show me the drawing and where it is? And we can have a look together. Excellent. Okay, so the bone structure is fantastic. Are you curving the hands? Do you have your hand out like this? And are you looking at it from the top, or are you looking at it from the bottom? Okay, like that. Okay, good. So we're adding the fingers, yeah? So you have the thumb. You can, Natalie, you can have your fingers go a lot longer up, okay? So don't forget that the thumb is right here at the bottom of the palm, and the palm basically covers a large section before the fingers even start, okay? So the fingers will go, it's almost like the fingers need to run off the page a little bit more. Natalie, you're on mute, so if you can unmute yourself, then I can.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
Okay, so the thumb is fine. So I guess from here, I just start the others from here.
So the thumb is going to it starts lower, right? The palm of the hand will start like right there before the fingers start.
Oh,
Exactly.
okay.
Right. So it's that palm, and this is what we often forget, is the size of the palm is almost the size of the actual finger. So with the thumb being so low, we just forget that there's that extra distance, right? So that those fingers will continue, and then it's going to be, then that hand is accurate. Anyone else doing their hand that wants to show me what you've got so far?
Okay.
All right, so this is the exercise for today, is to look at the hand, look at the bone structure,
Okay, I could do it from this way.
and then accurately trace your hand to see and feel each bump. It's going to be a hand. In the end, all of you are going to get a hand on the page, but it's about having and making your hand and have it say what you want, right?
Oh,
So
okay. So the thumb is fine.
So when I have the hand, you can also add your, right, you can think about adding the particular details. And don't worry if it's not, if it's not coming, or if the fingers look, don't give up if it's not working, right? This is, again, the hardest thing to draw. So taking your time, finding out where these things are is part of the process. Sometimes when people get frustrated, they just stop. And that's one of the killers of art and creativity, is when it doesn't look, when your brain tells you that it doesn't look like you want it to look, then you give up, because it's, it's too hard or for whatever reason. And that's the killer, right? In drawing, you get better and better the more you do it. So it helps when you just keep flexible and understand if it doesn't look exactly like I wanted it to look, if it's not perfect, it's okay. It'll get there with practice. But the worst thing is that often sometimes when it doesn't look exactly like we want, we forget to do the practice, or we stop doing the practice altogether because it doesn't come as easily. All right, so we have this now. Stop me if you need a little bit of help or if you have any questions. We're going to keep going. Remember the 10 steps that you all worked on from 0 to 10. Now we need to look at the hand in terms of light, medium, and dark, okay? There wouldn't be any form, we wouldn't be able to see the hand or the form without light, medium, and dark, okay? It just wouldn't be, that's why at night you don't see the forms accurately. You have light coming from a certain part, so for the next step, what you want to do is we want to shade over all the part that you are drawing. You're going to take a pencil, if you have it. If you have pen, this is a little bit more difficult, but we'll still make it work. You're going to take a pencil, and you want to shade over the entire thing about 4 steps. So remember how you had 1 through 10. Shading 4 steps would be over 4 times over the same section. So you want to take your hand, and we're going to shade over the entire thing. Almost losing the beautiful drawing that you just created. But don't worry, we're going to get it back. Again, it's part of a process and part of way of seeing.
Are you talking the end? Or are you talking the 10, the 3D?
Remember the 10 steps that we had? We had shading 1, then
Yeah.
we had shading 2, and it progressively got darker and darker. What you want to shade your hand with, you want to shade over it at least 3 times. All right, so you take your pencil, you hold it sideways, and that will give you the most amount of lead, and that will coat and cover that hand. And if you can try to not push down on the pencil, just very lightly over the same area, otherwise it's going to give you lines going across, which is not necessarily what you want. You want the whole thing to read as one.